TOEFL Integrated Writing Task. Writing based on reading and listening. For this task, you'll read a passage about an academic topic. A clock at the top right of your screen will tell you how much time you have to read. You should take notes on the passage while you read. The passage will then be removed, and you will listen to a lecture on the same topic. As you listen, you should also take notes. You will be able to see the reading passage again when it is time for you to write. You may use your notes to help you answer the question. You will then be asked to write a response that asks you about the relationship between the lecture to which you just listened and the reading passage. Using information from the reading passage and the lecture, answer the question as completely as possible. Please note that this question does not ask you for your personal opinion. Your response will be judged on the quality of your writing and on the completeness and accuracy of the content. In addition to the economic and social differences between the North and the South, there were other reasons for the Civil War. I'm going to talk about a few more of those right now. States versus federal rights. Since the time of the Revolution, two camps emerged. Those arguing for greater state rights and those arguing that the federal government needed to have more control. The first organized government in the U.S. after the American Revolution was under the Articles of Confederation. The 13 states formed a loose confederation with a very weak federal government. However, when problems arose, the weakness of this form of government caused the leaders of the time to come together at the Constitutional Convention and create in secret the U.S. Constitution. Strong proponents of state rights like Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry were not present at this meeting. Many felt that the new Constitution ignored the rights of states to continue to act independently. They felt that the states should still have the right to decide if they were willing to accept certain federal acts. This resulted in the idea of nullification, whereby the states would have the right to rule federal acts unconstitutional. The federal government denied states this right. However, proponents such as John C. Calhoun fought vehemently for nullification. When nullification would not work and states felt that they were no longer respected, they moved towards secession. Now let me define that term succession. Succession is when a state formally breaks ties with the federal government and declares its own ability to govern itself. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is the fight between the slave and the non-slave state proponents. As America began to expand, first with the lands gained from the Louisiana Purchase and later with the Mexican War, the question of whether new states admitted to the Union would be slave or free. The Missouri Compromise passed in 1820 made a rule that prohibited slavery in states from the former Louisiana Purchase, the latitude 36 degrees 30 minutes north, except in Missouri. During the Mexican War, conflict started about what would happen when the new territories that the U.S. expected to gain upon victory. David Wilmot proposed the Wilmot Proviso in 1846, which would ban slavery in the new lands. However, this was shot down to much debate. The Compromise of 1850 was created by Henry Clay and others to deal with the balance between slave and free states, northern and southern interests. One of the provisions was a Fugitive Slave Act that was discussed in number 1 above. That was that first reason I gave you that you see in the reading passage. Another issue that further increased tensions was the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. It created 2 new territories that would allow the states to use popular sovereignty to determine whether they would be free or slave. The real issue occurred in Kansas, where pro-slavery Missourians began to pour into the state to help force it to be slave. These people were called border ruffians. Problems came to a head in violence at Lawrence, Kansas. The fighting that occurred caused it to be called Bleeding Kansas. The fight even erupted on the floor of the Senate when anti-slavery proponent Charles Sumner was beat over the head by South Carolina Senator Preston Brooks. The fourth cause of the Civil War was the growth of the Abolition Movement. Increasingly, the Northerners became more polarized against slavery. Sympathies began to grow for abolitionists and against slavery and slaveholders. This occurred especially after some major events, including the publishing of Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin, the Dred Scott case, John Brown's raid, and the passage of the Fugitive Slave Act that held individuals responsible for harboring fugitive slaves even when they were located in non-slave states. Now, the fifth and last thing I want to talk about in terms of what caused the Civil War has to do with the election of the new president, Abraham Lincoln. Even though things were already coming to a head in terms of the beginning of the Civil War, when Lincoln was elected president in 1860, South Carolina issued its Declaration of the Causes of Secession. They believed that Lincoln was anti-slavery and in favor of Northern interests. Before Lincoln was even elected president, before he officially became president, I should say, 7 states had seceded from the Union: South Carolina, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas. And there you have it. These are the major causes of the Civil War. Read the question below. Use the remaining time indicated to plan and write your response. Your response will be judged on the quality of your writing, as well as how well your response presents the points in the lecture and the relationship to the reading passage. Typically, an effective response consists of 150 to 225 words. Summarize the key points in the lecture and explain how they add to the information in the reading passage.